Hello, fifth grade. Yesterday we talked a little bit about life changes and we did some pre-reading activities where we talked as well as we could talk about how there are some things that are hard to make a change in your life and some things that are easy. We did a little pre-reading and we looked at the title of an article along with its picture, caption, and some vocabulary words to prepare for reading the article today. What we're going to do today is we're going to read the article together. You're going to follow along while I read aloud and stop and talk about a few things and just go over some questions you're going to answer and how to answer some of those questions, just logistically more than anything. Um, and then when you're done watching this video, then you'll go and answer the questions we've just gone over. So make sure you pay attention because you never know when some answers might happen to come out while I'm talking, and then that's just like free candy. You don't want to leave it there, right? All right, let's look at our work for today. This will look just slightly different than what you're looking at because I don't have the kid view, I have the teacher view, but the answers aren't going to be seen, so you'll be okay. I would ask you if you were sitting in front of me, why do you think I chose a picture of a butterfly for a unit called Life Changes? Yep. It's kind of one of the biggest life changes, right? When a caterpillar goes into its cocoon and changes into a butterfly. We're not talking about making those kinds of changes, becoming a different creature altogether, but we are going to be talking about making some changes and one woman's journey as she made some changes. So let's look at this together. We have life changes, unit day 2. Here's the picture we looked at yesterday, the title, The Power to Change. And you'll recall this is the picture of a large audience listening to Saskia Sassens, a writer and sociologist, giving a TED Talk in 2013. Now let's read together. Please follow along while I read. Since its first event in 1984, TED has aimed to inspire people around the world by sharing powerful ideas. In 2011, Kylie Dunn, a writer from Australia, decided to shake up her life. Every month for a year, she decided to try 2 new activities. In February 2012, for example, one of her goals was to eat less meat for 30 days. Later, she wrote a letter to a friend or relative every day for a month. In just 12 months, she changed her life in more than 20 different ways. I'm going to pause right here. Let's look at this vocabulary word, goals. One of her goals was to eat less meat for 30 days. So this is not talking about she did not score a basket. It's not that kind of a goal. She decided this is something I want to do and I'm going to do everything I can to try to do that. So she made that her vision, her goal. She was going to reach that goal. Um, it's just interesting. In sign language, a goal, you point to your other finger because this is what you're working towards. You're going to the goal that way. I think I love the idea, the concept of sign language to work with vocabulary because I think it's easy to remember. So there's our goal. Okay. All right, let's keep going. We will stop and look at vocab words on the way. As a matter of fact, let's look at those first for this paragraph. Here we have a project. This word can also be said project, but that means it's a verb. You're projecting something onto a screen. Here it's a project, something that you're working on. You're focused on something that you may be working with other people, but it's something that you're all working together on for one goal. And then the other word we have in this paragraph is experiences. Experiences are things that happen to you or that you get to watch or you get to take part in. Those are your own experiences, and your experiences are yours alone and nobody else's. A year of change. Dunn was inspired to try her project after watching a TED Talk by Matt Cutts. To get ideas for activities, she watched hundreds of other TED Talks. Her first activity in November 2011 was inspired by Jesse Arrington's talk, Wear Nothing New. Dunn tried each activity for 30 days and then wrote about her experiences in a blog called My Year of TED. Now, you guys are more used to vlogs, which are video logs. Um, a captain of a ship used to keep a log, and every day they would write, this is what we've seen, this is where we've been, this is what we've done, especially in the days of explorers when they were trying to map out lands that hadn't been seen before, and they were trying to help us make maps and help us know where things were. So that's the captain's log. Well, we've taken that and we have vlogs, which is a video log, and this is talking about a blog. So a blog is actually an abbreviated word for something that originally was called a web log. So web log, the B stuck around. We got rid of the whole first part. So a blog is like when people write about their experiences online on a website, and so that's where blog comes from. It was a whole lot of information just to find out what a blog was. Hope you enjoyed that. That was free today. I won't charge you for it. Let's move on to the third paragraph. Finally, when her project was over, Dunn talked about her experiences at a TEDx conference in Hobart, Australia. Dunn's talk in January of 2014 inspired other people to change their attitudes and their lives. Before her project, Dunn says she didn't think she had the courage to change her life. The project showed her she had more strength than she thought. So I know no one's ever talked to you about your attitude before. Me either. My attitude is perfect always. Okay, it's not. But yours isn't either, I bet. Your attitude is how you feel about something and how you express that feeling. So it can be a feeling about a thing or about a person or about an event and how you respond to that feeling. Um, your attitude when your parents ask you to clean your room, as opposed to your attitude when your parents say, hey, we're going swimming or we're going to the park or we're going on vacation. Different attitudes, right? Um, Another word we want to look at here is courage. She didn't think she had the courage to change her life. She didn't think she was brave enough to try to change her life. Let me tell you something though about courage and bravery. Neither of those things mean that you're not scared. The difference when you're brave or when you have courage is that you're scared and you try things anyway, which sometimes is a good thing. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes fear is healthy. It keeps us from doing things that are not smart. A million stories. People who watch TED Talks end up shifting their view of the future, says Chris Anderson, the curator of TED. Pause. We've already had two vocabulary words and I want to talk about them. We're talking about shifting their view of the future. That is not the difference from me looking here and now looking here. I did shift my view. I was looking at you and now I was looking off into the classroom. That's not what that means. Remember, we talked about view yesterday. This is somebody's opinion or way of thinking about something. So they may have thought all along that they didn't like this one thing or this idea. And after hearing something else, they're starting to think, oh, well, maybe that's not so bad. So their opinion changes, shifting their view. Chris Anderson is the curator of TED. That means he takes care of all that information. You have curators at museums who take care of the art and create exhibits and make sure that those things are given to the public in the correct way. And that's what Chris Anderson does with TED Talks. Let's just keep looking at vocab here. Um, we're going to talk about the word impact. When two cars crash into each other, that's an impact. But this is a different kind of impact. This is a much more positive impact. An impact is the effect you have on something. When cars crash together, one car stops the other, one car pushes another out of the way. And impact is I hope I have an impact on your life this year. I hope that I help you learn to love reading and maybe even learn to love school or love to learn writing, or there are a multitude of things I want to have an impact with you this year. But that's my having an effect on you is an impact. Individual changes are single changes, little one change at a time. I'm an individual, you're an individual, but if we're all sitting in this classroom, we're not an individual, we're a lot of individuals that make up one class. An individual is one, and in this case, we're talking about one change as opposed to some giant like chain of changes. And then the last word here is positive. When I just said that a car crash would not be positive, we want to look at other positive things. Positive is something good, something beneficial, something that has a good impact on you. Is positive. Positive thinking, thinking only good thoughts. Be positive, have a positive attitude. Think about that's the silver lining kind of attitude. Okay. All right. So another section of a lot of information. Let's go back to A Million Stories. People who watch TED Talks end up shifting their view of the future, says Chris Anderson, the curator of TED. He says that TED's goal isn't to make a single big change. TED's impact is the millions of stories of small changes. Individual changes, like Kylie Dunn's, are happening every day. Together, these changes have the power to change the future in a positive way. As Anderson explains, instead of thinking of the future as an unstoppable force, people can play a part in shaping it. And then the last part of the article is the infographic that we looked at length yesterday. So it's here. You may need it, but I'm not going to read that to you now because I did that in the last video. If you need to go hear it again, you know where to find it. Let's look at some questions you're going to be answering on your own in a few minutes. What was the main idea of this passage? When people ask you about the main idea, they're asking you, what is the passage mostly about? This is not the part where you tell a detail or you give a tiny little sliver of information. This is the main punch of the article there, the passage that you just read. So read these three and choose the best answer. Why did Kylie Dunn do her year of TED? Go back and look in the article. It tells you. What does Chris Anderson say about the future? Go back and look in the article. It tells you. Let me say this quickly. When you take a math test, you have to know how to do the math problem to get the right answer. When you take a science test, you have to know the science vocabulary and understand the scientific principle behind what you're doing to be able to answer the questions correctly. When you take a social studies test, you may be asked to know dates, events, people, places in order to do well on a test. When you take a test, a quiz, do an assignment in reading where they ask you these kinds of questions, I didn't expect you to come to school today knowing who Chris Anderson was or what he says about the future. So if you didn't know that already, why am I asking you this? Because it's in the text. I'm asking you not to know these things. I'm asking you to know how to find these things. I'm asking you to read and understand what you've read so that you can answer these questions. But I'm not expecting you to remember all that exactly. Go back and look. Your mouse is a wonderful thing. It lets you scroll. Please, please take the few seconds that it takes to go back and find the answer in the article so that you can get these questions right. Don't just guess. Your grades are worth more than that, and you are better than that. So go back and find those answers in the passage, please. Now let's look at this next section. It's understanding sequence words. When writing about a process, writers use sequence words to organize their ideas. Sequence words include first, second, third, you could keep going, fourth, fifth, sixth, you keep going forever, but you get the idea. Then, next, later, before, after, and finally. And there are a ton more. That's just some examples so that I think that you could understand what sequence means. Sequence is the order that things happen in. Um, you read things in sequence when you are reading directions for how to put something together. You can't do the last step before you do the first step. You have to do them in order. A recipe to bake a cake, I may need to first get out all my ingredients. Second, preheat the oven. Third, there's an order for things. It doesn't work if I put the cake pan in the oven before I ever mix the batter. These things have an order that have to happen. Sometimes writers don't write all parts of the process in chronological or in time order. So it's important to notice those sequence words as you read so that you can put them in order as you're reading. Okay, so I've given you some sentences here and I've left out the sequence word, and you need to go back and figure out which sequence word makes the most sense. And some of them might have a possibility of a couple answers, so let me tell you this. There are 5 sentences, and every sentence you have the choice of these 5 words: ago, after, then, finally, and first. Okay? If I use the word ago in this sentence, I'm not going to use it again. So if you find yourself using a word twice, go back to where you used it first and look at where you want to use it now and see which one works best, and then go find the different answer for the first one. If you can plug these words into your sentence as you're testing them out, um, you're going to easily get rid of a couple every time. For instance, Ted ago began to put videos of TED Talks on the internet in 2006 is not a sentence that makes sense. So I know that ago is not going to work. Ted after began also doesn't work. Ted then began, Ted finally began, or Ted first began. Those all three work. And because there's three of those, I might actually skip this sentence and come back to it. Just don't forget to come back to it. 5 years blank. 5 years first. 5 years finally. Let's look at the whole sentence. 5 years blank. Writer Kylie Dunn decided to change her life. 5 years then. 5 years after. After what? 5 years ago, writer Kylie Dunn decided to change her life. I'm going to say that one's a go, but then I can't use a go anywhere else. You understand? Writer Kylie Dunn decided to change her life blank watching a TED Talk by Matt Cutts. I know it's not going to be a go, so she decided to change her life after watching a TED Talk by Matt Cutts. That sounds good, but don't choose it until you've tried all the other words. Okay? She watched a lot of talks to get ideas. Blank, she used those ideas to decide on her projects. When her projects were blank over, a go over, after over, when her projects were then over, when her projects were finally over, I like the way that sounds, when her projects were first over, she gave her own TED Talk. You figure those out. Okay. The next part, you're going to be asked to create a timeline. Actually, I've made the timeline. You had to put things in the timeline so that it makes sense. Now, let's remember that a timeline does exactly what it sounds like it does. It puts things in order based on time. So let's look at this one. Here's 2011. I don't know what this is, but this is 2012 and this is 2014. So this timeline starts up here at the earliest time and comes down here to the latest time. So sometime in 2011, the first activity of Kylie Dunn was inspired by a talk called something. February of some year, notice this is month and year, she decided to eat less of something. In late 2012, she decides she begins a new challenge. She writes a blank to a friend or relative every day. And sometime in 2014, she gives a talk at a TEDx event in Hobart somewhere. So this is what the timeline looks like. You need to refer to that. I've put the blanks down here. So what goes in blank number one? When in 2011 was her first activity inspired by a talk called blank? You might have to scroll back up to the passage. That's okay. It won't kill you. In 2011, she decided to shake up her life. And this is the beginning, but look here. Her first activity in what? November of 2011 was inspired by Jesse Arrington's talk, Where Nothing New. Let's go look. When in 2011? November of 2011. So I'll choose November there. And then what goes in blank too? Let's go back and see. The first activity was inspired by a talk called, we'll scroll down to see. First activity was inspired by a talk called Australia, Letter, Meet, Where Nothing New, January 2012 or November, Where Nothing New. So I think you see how to fill in those blanks. It's not as tricky as it first looks. So you're going to do that for every blank, all 7 of them. And then it says, complete the following sentences with vocabulary words from the article. And we've already talked about the vocabulary words, so this should not be tricky. Many people have blank or objectives that they want to accomplish in their life. They want to have individual or objectives. They want to have goals or objectives. They want to have experiences or objectives that they want to accomplish in your life. We all want to have experiences in our life. Experiences are not always something that we accomplish. A few minutes ago, I experienced drinking some water. That was not a great accomplishment. It's just something that I experienced. So while that makes a little bit of sense in that sentence, it's not the best answer. Many people have project or objectives. If that had an S on the end, it would be a competitor. Many people have projects or objectives they want to accomplish. I will have projects I want to accomplish, but it doesn't have an S on the end, so it doesn't fit in that sentence. Sometimes it's not about the vocabulary word as much as it is about how we write sentences, and you have to pay close attention to those kinds of things. So many people have goals or objectives they want to accomplish in their lives. See, you guys are getting the answers, and those people that don't listen to the videos, they're out of luck. A blank is a carefully planned work that has a special purpose. Please notice that in these sentences, the answers are all individual, goals, experiences, and project. I just use goals here, so am I going to use goals again? Nope. So choose something other than goals. Something that is blank is related to one person or one thing. Blank are events that happen to you. Here we're going to match the vocabulary word from the article with the definition. If you are motivated or stimulated, you're motivated to do something. Kylie Dunn was motivated to try this every 30 days, try something new project. She was impact, she was positive, she was inspired, or she was attitudes. She was motivated, she was inspired. See, you just got another answer. Don't tell the others. A powerful effect. Those two cars crashing into each other is not a good effect, but it's a powerful one. The ways you think and feel about someone or something, the way I feel about my alarm clock when it goes off at 5 o'clock in the morning. It's not always positive, I'll tell you that. If something is good or something is beneficial. And then we're back to just a few multiple choice questions. After watching a TED Talk, Kylie Dunn says she was inspired to shake up her life. What did she mean by that? Chris Anderson says that many people think the future is an unstoppable force. What do you think he means? You have some multiple choice questions to choose or answers to choose from there. So, that is what you're doing today. And we did a lot of it together just now, and it's going to come back into your brain when you stop watching this video and go answer the questions for yourself. So go do that. Obviously, if you get stuck, you can come back and watch this video again. You can even fast forward to the parts that you need. And if you're really stuck, you can always, always, always email me. I email back quickly, promise. So just let me know if you need help, all right? All right, go get that done. Thanks.